Let me start a rich client. First, we'll see what is tracker and what is combined queries and merging options in R4. Now, let me create a small report with the year, quarter, sales revenue. Run the query, then it will create a one simple vertical black with the year, comma, quarter, comma, sales revenue. Okay, once you created your report, you have a lot of options a lot of features in the reporting side. Let's see. There is a analysis. There is analysis. I hope you talked about all the options there in analysis. We talked about filter, ranking, controls. Controls is basically for filters, and we talked about break, sort, as well as drill also. When you see in the data access, we have a we have a three, four, five options. New data provider. This is basically to add a new query for the existing report. For example, you have this report, you have a one black, and if you want to create one more black on top of other universe or maybe same universe, that time you need to go to new data provider. Then it will ask you to select the universe. If you select universe as a same universe, that time you can create a query on the same universe, or you can select a new universe to create a new query, and then when you run a query, that time it will create a new black. Edit data provider. This is basically to edit the existing query, or to add a new query, for the report. Now, the next option is called as a purge. Purge is basically, I talked about the architecture of the BO. When you export your report to the server, it will save into the IFRS with the data. It will save into IFRS, input file repository server, with the data. When you click purge, what it will do, it will remove the data and will save only structure of the report into the repository. When you save a report with the records, with the data, it will occupy a lot of memory in the server, so it will decrease the performance. So the best practice is, whenever you export a report in BO, first you need to click on purge, then purge. When you click purge, it will remove the data, then export a structure of the report into the server. That is mandatory. See, when you click purge query 1, then click on S, it will remove the data from the report. So now report is a structure. It's a structure. Then what you need to do is, this you need to export to the server. This you need to save. When you save, it will save in the local system. Then you need to publish into the server. Once you published into the server, it will be saved without data. Then it will occupy less memory. Purging is basically to remove the data from the report. The best practice, when you see in the project, whatever the report you created in the project, before exporting to the server, please make sure you need to purge it, remove it, and export it. Then you need to publish. I hope you know how to publish into a report into the server. First you need to save, it will save in the local, then you need to publish into the desired folder. You have published. This time report will be saved with the structure without data. Okay, that is purging. The next, new variable and you have a merge. Today we'll talk about merge. Let me click on refresh. When you click refresh again, it will get a data. So there is a way same now the you exported the report without data. The end user, whenever they open a report from BI Launchpad, the report automatically refreshes and get a new data. The reason is in the repository they don't have a data, they have a structure. So whenever they open, they click refresh, automatically the structure pane, the report structure will be refreshed and they can see the data. They can see the data. The next, merging. You will see merging. Now you have a one black. If you want to create a one more black. Now I have a report with the year, comma, quarter, comma, sales revenue. I want to create a one more query. Go to edit. When you go to edit, there you can create a one more query, add query from universe. From universe, I want to take a same universe, or if you want, you can take other universe. From this universe, I'm taking, for this query, I'm taking data for year, comma, quarter, comma, quantity sold. When you see query 1, you have a year, comma, quarter, comma, sales revenue. When you see query 2, you have a year, comma, quarter, comma, quantity sold. That means you have two queries. And each query have a separate measure, but dimensions were same. When you see dimensions of query 1 is year, quarter, and dimensions of query 2 is also year, quarter, but query 1, when you see the measure, you have a sales revenue. Query 2, when you see, you have a measure called as quantity sold. When you run a two queries, it will create if you select insert a table in the current report, it will create a two blacks. One black is for year wise, quarter wise sales revenue. Second black is year wise, quarter wise quantity sold. Now my requirement is I want to take a common year from both the queries, common quarter from both the queries, but I want to take a sales revenue from query 1, quantity sold from query 2. That is the case. What you need to do is in the BO, if you want to create a third black, then you need to go to report elements. There you have a vertical black. Take a vertical black and keep in your keep in the structure pane. Keep in the report structure pane. If you want a vertical table, please select a vertical table. Click on OK. It will add a black. Then what you need to do is you need to go to data access. There you have a match. When you click on match, see here you have a year 1 as well as when you see here you have a quarter 1. When you see here you have a year 1 and quarter, you have a quarter 1, quarter 2. Here you have a year 1 and year 2. Year 1, year 2. Year 1, year 2. Year 2. But now, it is OK is not enabled. The reason why it is not enabled OK, no. By default in BO, in R4 or R3, if you create a query with the two separate objects, when you create a query, two queries with the same objects, by default it will be applied the match. Already matching is done here. See, when you see here you have a done matching. Why it has done matching, when you go to document summary, there when you see here, when you see the document options, somewhere you have a auto match option. Auto match dimension is on. Auto match dimension option is on. When you see in the document summary, the option for the merging is auto match dimension is on. That's why it already applied the merging. On two common dimensions. That's why you can when you see that's why, you know, automatically it has done the merging. Now what you need to do is For the third block, you need to take a common dimension which is created on year 1 and year 2, that you need to drag and drop. Then from query 1, take a sales revenue. Query 2, you need to take a sales revenue, and query 1, you need to take a sales revenue. Query 2, you need to take a quantity sold. This time what it will do, it will apply a full outer join. Let me explain how it will apply a full outer join. When you go to edit query, for example, I add a filter on this query. There I have a 2004. In query 2, I am applying a filter on 2004. Anyway, leave about this filter. I have a data for all years. When you see in query 1, you are getting data only for 2004. When you see query 2 is fetching for 2004, 2005, 2006. Then you apply the merging. When you run two queries, this time when you see the data, here when you see you have a 2004 data, when you see here you have a 2004, 2005, 2006 data. When you see you are merging, still you have a data for 2004, 2005, 2006, but here you have a null values. The reason why it's giving a null values, it will apply a full outer join. When you talk about your table 1, in the table 1 is for query 1. In query 1 you have a data only for 2004 sales revenue. Query 2 you have a data for 2004, 2006 quantity sold. 2004, 2005, 2006 quantity sold. Now when you merge two queries, it will take a common from both queries. You have a 2004 and you have a sales revenue and quantity sold. That's why it's inserted sales revenue and quantity sold. But when you talk about 2005, in query 1 you don't have any data. Query 2 you have a data. That time still it will get a null values from query 1, but right side it will get all values. Right side will get a quantity sold. But 2006 case also you have a null values and quantity sold you will get. That means it will apply a full outer join between two queries. What it will do, when you apply a merging, it will check 2004 in query 1, 2004 in query 2. Yes, both values will be there. That's why it displayed sales revenue, quantity sold. Then it will take 2005. It will check in query 1. If it is there in query 1, it will display the sales revenue. Then it will check 2005 in query 2. If it is there quantity sold, it will give. Otherwise, it will give a null. Again 2006. It will check in the first query. If it is not there, then it will give a null. Then 2006 is there in the second query. Then it will give a quantity sold. It will check it will check both the queries.
Muted.
Wherever it find the data, it will give the data. If it is not identified a data for the particular year in that query, that time it will display a null value. That is your merging. Definite question they will ask in the interview. What is merging? And tell me how the merged block will display the data. You just need to explain. Merging is basically to merge two queries for creating a third block. The mandatory for merging is both the queries must have at least one common dimension. If you want to merge two queries and create a one block, two queries must have at least one common dimension. When you apply a merging on two queries, it will apply a full outer join between two queries. Full outer join means it will give all values from query 1, all values from query 2. If there is no matching values in query 1, that time will give a null. If there is no matching values in query 2, it will give a null values. That means if query 1 have only 2004 data, if query 2 you have a 2004, 2005, 2006, 2007. Sorry, if query 1 have only 2004 data, if query 2 have 2005, 2006, 2007 data, still you will get in the result set 2004, 2005, 2006, 2007. But 2004 is not there in query 1, so you'll get a sales revenue value, but it's not there in query 2, you'll get a null value. But 2005, 2006, 2007 case, the three values you don't have in the query 1, you'll get a null values in the query 1, but in query 2 you'll get a values. Query 2 will get a values. But 2004 case, you have that value in the query 1, you'll get a value in the query 1, but null value in the query 2. That means you got all from query 1, all from query 2, as well as you are getting null values from query 1, as well as you are getting null values from query 2 also. That is your full outer join. Merging is always applies full outer join between two queries. That is your merging. That is your merging. Next concept is called as combined queries. I just want to explain a combined queries. Let me create a new report. Go to new comma universe and select the required universe. Click on select. Now I'm trying to create there is an option called as the combined queries here. When you click add combined queries, it will add two queries, query 1 union query 2, query 1 union query 2. Basically the combined queries is, if you have a 10 years history in the database in your universe, if you are writing a query to get 10 years data, if you are writing a query for getting 10 years data, the time query will take a lot of time. Instead of writing one query, you can write two queries. Query 1 you can get 5 years data, query 2 you can get 5 years data. Later if you want, you can do union or intersection or minus between two queries. If you have applied, if query 1 is taking first 5 years data, query 2 is taking next 5 years data, if you have applied union, that time both the queries will give 5 plus 5, 10 years data. If you apply intersection between query 1 and query 2, then it will check the common values between two queries and it will display the data. If you apply a difference between query 1 and query 2, that time it will check, if you apply a difference between query 1 and query 2, it will see the values which are presented in query 1, values which are not presented in the query 2 will be displayed. Let me create a one report with the two queries. Now I have a combined queries. I have a union. If you want to change intersection, please you can change intersection or minus. Union, then when you click union, it will give an intersection. When you click intersection, then you'll get a minus. Okay. Anyway, I'm just running a report here. Quarter sales revenue, and I want to create a prompt on year equals to filter on year equals to 2005 and query 1. Click on query 1. You created query 2, then create a query 1. I'm just creating a query 1. See, when you see in query 2 you have a year quarter, and query 2 you have the sales revenue, and second and then query 1 also create year quarter, then your sales revenue. Create a prompt filter on query 1 2004 2006. That means query 2 I am running for 2005 with the same object year quarter comma sales revenue. That means query 2 is taking data only for 2005. Query 1 I am running for 4/6. That means query 1 also I am running with the same objects for 2004 and 2006 with union. See, here I have a union between query 1 and query 2. When you run a query, this time you'll get only one block with the combination of query 1 data and query 2 data. You'll get 2004, 2005, 2006 data. When you go to edit query, when you apply intersection, this time you'll get a null, you'll get no data. The reason is you don't have a common data, common values between query 1 and query 2 intersection. When you apply minus, This time you'll get only 2005, sorry, 2004 and 2006. The reason is you applied a minus between query 1 minus query 2. In query 1 you have a 2004 2006 data, query 2 you have a 2005 data. Yes, the minus will display the data which is there in query 1 that is not presented in query 2. 2004 2006 you have in query 1 but you don't have in query 2. That time it will present in the result set. When you change the order, query 2 minus query 1, this time when you run a query, you will get only 2005 data. The reason is this time it will display the data which is there in query 2 but not there in query 1. Yes, in the query 2 you have a 2005. The 2005 not is presented in query 1, so you'll get in the result set. There's a way you can create a combined queries. Please keep in your mind, combined queries always in one universe. Basically to take some mystery from one query, some mystery from second query. The later, if you want, you can combine both by using union or intersection or minus. The generally, when you go to database, if you have a big table, there you have 50,000 records. When you fire a query on 50,000 records, for the full scan it will take a lot of time. That time what people will do, they will subdivide a table into they will partition the table into subtables. One table is the 25,000 records, second table into 25,000 records. Later parallelly they will fire two queries, later they will do union or intersection, so it will improve the performance. Same way here also, you have a universe. In the universe, in the data warehouse, you have a 20 years history. Instead of firing one query, when you fire a one query, it will start from first record, and it will check for all the records there in the data warehouse. It will take a lot of time. Instead of doing that, fire a query one on the universe for some years, and fire query two on the same universe the some years, and later you can do union or intersection or minus based on the end user requirement. That will improve the performance. That is a combined queries. Combined queries always contains common objects, all common objects. When you talk about merging contains only one common dimension. For the merging, one common dimension is enough. For the merging case, you can create a query one in one universe, query two in another universe, but both queries must have at least one common dimension. If you have one common dimension, it will make a merging on the common dimension. Later, the third black, query 1 have a one black, query 2 have another black. Third black is a common black, which contains merge dimension, and measure 1 from query 1, measure 2 from query 2. So that time it will give a full outer join. When you talk about combined queries, when you go to query panel, there you have a combined queries option. By default, it will create a two queries. Please, query 1 you need to maintain the same objects, query 2 you need to maintain the same objects, but you have a different filters. One query will search for 2005 data, second query search for 2004 2006 data. Parallelly both will fetch the data. It will improve the performance. But when you click add query, if you added two queries for the report, when you add query, that time it will merge. Combined queries is for union and intersection minus. Add query is basically for merging. Okay, and next agenda is we'll see next agenda is we'll see uh, we talked about merging and combined queries as well as purge, and next agenda is we'll see how to write a formulas. Variable we'll talk about variable. We'll talk about variable. We'll talk about variable. Please, if you have any doubts, please ping in the go-to meeting. Okay, uh, now the next, see the variable. We'll see variable. What is variable? The variables basically to derive a new column in the report. For example, you have a sales revenue year. If customer is requested to create a sales tax column in the report, sales tax column for the report for all the blacks. Suppose you have a two blacks, one more black you have in the report too. For example, see add report. I added the new report, and in the new report I have a new black, new black. You have a new black with the same data, or maybe you have a some data, same objects. You have a data, and in the report one you have a data. Now I want to write a formula for the sales tax for two tabs, tab 1 and tab 2. My requirement is I need to add a new column for the two tabs for the sales tax formula. They gave a sales tax formula. Sales tax equals to sales revenue star 0.3. They want to calculate sales tax based on sales revenue, based on 30%. 30% is the sales tax on sales revenue. That time you need to write a formula, but that formula you're going to use for the two tabs, tab 1, tab 2. But when you write a formula, you need to write same formula in two times. Instead of writing two times, create one variable and reuse for both the tabs with the same formula. Now I just want to explain how to create a variable with one formula and how you are going to reuse the variable in multiple places. Basically the variable is name of the formula. Name of the formula I call as a variable. Variable is basically to reuse formula in multiple places. If you're not creating a variable, that time you need to write a formula in the tab 1, again tab 2. But when you create a variable, that you can reuse in tab 1, tab 2 by using drag and drops. Now I am going to explain how to write a variable. Variable. Uh, for writing a variable, for writing a variable, I know in the data, same in the data access, you have a option called as a new variable. Just click on new variable. Now I'm going to write a formula for the sales revenue. Sales revenue is the measure. So I'm writing a variable based on measure. So you need to click on measure because you're creating a variable for the measures. That time you need to write a measure. You need to take measure variable, and the variable name I want to give as sales tax. Sales tax, and you need to write a formula. Now my formula is sales revenue star star 0.3. 0.3 means 30%, and validate it. Click on validate. This is for validation. Once you validated, if you don't have any errors, click on OK. This time it will create a formula. This time it will create a variable here. When you see in the data available objects pane, there you can see variables as well as objects. Variable is sales tax. Sales tax. This you created with the sales revenue star 0.3. If you want to reuse this variable into the report, just drag and drop and add for the black. So it will create a black. It will add for that black. Same variable, same formula if you want to use for tab 2. Same story. Drag and drop. Sales tax into tab 2 also. This is a way you can add your variable to your blacks. You can add your variable to black. That means same formula you have reused in the two tabs by using variable. Variable is basically to reuse formula in multiple tabs. To reuse formula in tabs, multiple tabs. This is a way you can reuse. Yes, we talked about variable. The variable you can create for dimensions also. If you want to concatenate year and quarter, and if you want to use in the report, that time you need to go to variable. That time you need to take a dimension variable. If you want to concatenate year and quarter, then you need to write year plus quarter and name some, give us some name. For example, sometimes you need to write a variable for concatenating first name, last name, then you will get a full name. Sometimes you have an object called as a first name, last name, but in the report, if you want to display full name, that time you need to write a variable name as full name and concatenate of first name plus last name. But I don't have a first name, last name in my example, so I'm taking a year and quarter, I'm concatenating, and I'm displaying the combination of year quarter in the report. Now treat my variable name as sample, and formula for the variable is year plus quarter. Click on OK. Yes, you created the variable that is a concatenation of both year and quarter. Then the sample variable you can drag and drop into a report. It will display the concatenation of both. So this variable you call as the dimension variable. And that means you can create a variable for measures, dimensions, as well as details also. For example, you have a detailed data, phone number. Phone number is displaying 9959000026. If you want to add a 91 for that number, what you need to do is create one variable phone number, then write a formula double quotes plus 91 plus your phone number object, so that it will add a 91 prior to the phone number. That is your detail variable. You can write a variable for all kind of objects. Variable is basically to reuse a formula in multiple places. Okay, let me recap what we discussed today. We talked about purging. Purging is basically to remove data from the report and save a report without data, means save report with the structure with not data into the server. And then later we talked about merging. Merging is basically if you are running a report with the two queries, query one with some measures, query two with the some other measures, but both queries have a one common dimension. You can apply merge on common dimension. Then later you can take common dimension into third black and measure one from black one. Sorry, measure one from query one, measure two from query two also. Query two also. That is your that is for merging. If you want to apply a merging between two queries, the mandatory from both the queries is both the queries must have at least one common dimension. One common dimension, it's mandatory. Combine queries. If you are firing a query, if you are taking 10 years or 15 years history from one data warehouse, instead of firing one query, please click on combine queries and fire a query 1 for 5 years and query 2 for 5 years. Later you can apply union or intersection or minus between two queries. If you apply union between two queries, that means it will take a common data, it will take both the data from query 1, query 2 and display one black. If you apply intersection, it will take a common data from both the queries. If you apply minus, that time it will take data is there in query 1 but not there in query 2. If you apply query 2 minus query 1, that time it will apply data is there in query 2, data is not there in query 1. That we discussed. And later we talked about variable. Variable is basically, variable is the name of the formula. Name of the formula is called as a variable. That variable is basically to reuse formula in multiple places. To reuse formula in multiple places. You know the steps for creating variable. You need to go to data access, new variable, and give the name of the variable, and write a formula for the variable. Then it will create a one variable in the available objects pane. Then you can drag and drop that variable into the report, and you can reuse in the report. You can reuse in the report. The next, in analysis we talked about all, and in data access I talked about new data provider, edit, purge, repress, new variable, merging also. In formats, I hope you know the why in a format. If you want to change the borders, you can change the borders of your report, and as well as cells. If you want to clear the data from cells, here you can click on clear all, a clear format. It will remove all the data. That all we talked. Numbers, if you want to change the number format, here you don't have a decimal places. If you want to display the decimal places, here you can put decimal places. That time it will display two decimal places. And this is for left, right, and center align. And if you want to apply a custom number format, if you want to add a dollar, if you want to add a currency symbol, please take a currency symbol. That time it will add a currency symbol for your data. Now why it will give a hash error? If you need to, now the size of the column is just when you increase the width of the column, then it will display the dollar also. And size, if you want to change the size, here you have a width and height of the cell, you can change the size. Padding, you have a pad, horizontal padding and vertical padding. Now it's horizontal. If you want to change the direction of the text, you can change the direction of the text. That all we have in the formatting. I hope this is very, very, very easy, like your Word document. Report elements, I hope if you want to create a new block, please create a new block. If you want to create a vertical block, please take a vertical block. Horizontal, cross tab. If you want to create a cross tab, the mandatory is needed 2 dimensions, 1 measure. Take a cross tab. Then if you want a cross tab, click on cross tab, click on OK. The mandatory for the cross tab is you need 2 dimensions and 1 measure at least. Now see, if you want to create a cross tab, take 1 dimension into column wise, second dimension into row wise, and intersection is your measure. It's mandatory for cross tab. For the cross tab, the mandatory is you need 2 dimensions and 1 measure. 2 dimensions and 1 measure. That is your cross tab. And chart, if you want to create any kind of chart, take a chart and insert into the black. But the mandatory for creating chart in VO is you need 1 dimension, 1 measure. Dimension is always in x-axis. Let me take a one chart. Line. If you want a chart here, please insert a chart in particular wherever you want. Once you inserted your chart, it will ask you to drag and drop dimension into x-axis, measure into y-axis. If you want to add a dimension, please drag and drop into x-axis and measure into y-axis. Sales revenue is the measure. I'm just dragging and dropping into y-axis. It will create a line chart. Now you have if you want to add a one more dimension into x-axis, just drag and drop one more dimension into x-axis. Then it will display 2005, quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, quarter 4 with the lines. This is your line chart. The mandatory for chart is you need at least one what you call as 1 dimension, 1 measure. That is mandatory. That we talked. Data access, analysis, and as well as page setup. We talked about page setup also. Page setup, you can set a header, footer, and as well as all this with the page setup. that we discussed. I hope we are good with this. If you want to add a new report, you can add a new report here with the blank report. If you want to add a duplicate report, duplicate means, for example, you are in report 2. Here you have a lot of blacks. If you want to add a same duplicate black, click on duplicate. It will add a new duplicate. In the duplicate also you will get a same blacks. There's a way you can create your report. Now let's go to the formulas. How to write a different formulas in the report. Different formulas in the report. If you want to write a formulas in the report, you need to go to FX. If you want to write a formula for a particular column, take that particular column, select that particular column, and then it will be enabled. There you have a formula editor. Or if you want to write a formula for the blank cell, particular title, just select title. That time FX is enabled. If you want to write a formula for column heading, then click on column heading, then click on FX and write a formula. That means you can write a formula for titles, you can write a formula for the data, you can write a formula for the column headings also, or if you want to write on blank cell, still you can write a formula in the blank cell also. Wherever you want, you can write a formula. For example, I want to write a formula called as last execution date. I want to write a formula called as last execution date for one cell. If you want to insert a cell, go to cell or somewhere you have an insert. Let me take in the report element. If you want to insert a new cell, go to cell, there you have a blank cell, take a blank cell and insert here. My requirement is I want to write a formula for this cell is to display last execution date. If you want to display last execution date for this cell, you need to select this particular cell, and then click on FX, formula editor. That means I'm writing a formula for that cell, and then there you have a lot of formulas. You want to write a last execution date, just click on last LAL. There you have a just check for last execution date. Let me check last execution date. In the aggregates you don't have any data, and all functions, let's check in all functions. There you have a formula called as, there you have a function called as a last execution date. Just select last execution date, double click on last execution date. When you double click, it will appear in the formula editor. Then click on OK. Then it will write a formula called as last execution date for that particular cell. If you want to increase the width of this cell, please increase the width of this cell. There you have a data for 11/1/11. That means my system date is 11/1/11. This report I executed today. If you want to display last execution date for the report, that you need to put in the last execution date, you need to put somewhere in the report. That time you need to take a blank cell and go to FX and take a last execution date. It will write a last execution date for that report. When you save this report, when you refresh the report today, when you save the report in the server, one of the end user accessed your report, but the end user don't have a run access. Still they can see when the report got executed. The reason is, if I am a end user, you exported the report, but I don't have a refresh access, but I'm seeing data, but you exported 10 days back, but now I have a confusion what latest data I have in the report. That time I can see, oh, when you display last execution date, that time I can understand, oh, this report contains 10 days back data, because the last execution date that shows 10 days date. That will helpful for the view users to see the data availability. Okay, this last execution date you can create like this. And next, one of my end user, you're creating a report. My end user is asking please show the query summary for all the report. For example, when you take this report, you have a query called as query, you have a query, but my customer is asking to display query summary. Query summary. Query summary means what is the query name, from where it is taking data, what is the universe name, and how many records it is fetching, how much time it is taking for running a query, and what result objects used, what query filters used. That all statistics they want to see in the report. They want the statistics about this query, runtime for the query, execution time for the query, how many records fetched, from where it's taking data, what is the query name. That all details if they requested to display somewhere, then what you need to do is then take a one blank cell, same story, blank cell, take blank cell somewhere. Here you have a blank cell. If you want to increase the height and width of the blank cell, you can increase the height as well as width of the blank cell. I just want to increase the height and width of this blank cell. Yes, you can increase height and width of the blank cell. You increase. Then I am writing a formula for this blank cell. Select this blank cell. Go to effects. There you have a function called as query summary. There is a function in the all functions. I hope there is a function called as query summary. Query summary. Take query summary. Click on OK. Then it will give a query summary for your queries. So when you see in the blank cell, it is giving a statistics for all queries. Whatever the queries you have in the report, for all queries it's giving a summary, statistics of that queries. When you see, it give a statistics for query 1, query 2, as well as query 3 and query 4. Whatever the queries you have, it will giving a statistics. Query properties, universe name e-fashion, last refresh date 11/1/11, last execution duration. Last execution duration 1 second, number of rows fetched 4, and retrieve duplicate rows on. That means duplicate rows also it's fetching. And query definition, result objects year, quarter, sales revenue, filters on 2004. Query 2 properties. But my end user is asking to display only query 1 statistics but not query 2 statistics. But when you apply query summary here, it displaying statistics for all queries. But I want to show only query 1 statistics. Query 1 statistics. John,
Unmuted.
are you? Tell me, have you display query 1 statistics here? Hello? John sir, are you there? John sir. Vishwa, are you there? Hello? Vishwa, now see, when you apply query summary, it is giving a summary for all queries, right? It gives a summary for query 1, query 2, and as well as query 3. For example, you have a report have 3 queries. It will give a summary for all query 3 queries. That means statistics of query 1, statistics of query 2, query 3. But my customer is asking to display only query 1 statistics. You got it now? I don't want query 2 and query 3. I want only for query 1. Siva sir, have you display query 1 statistics here?
No, if you want in the formula field, I think so you have to put 1 within the brackets.
Tell me how you write that. If you want, you can write. I'll give you the access for you. Let me give a control. Please take a control. Now the question is, I want only summary for query 1. Please take a control. I gave a control.
Yeah, 1 second.
If you work for, when you work for the finance sector, they'll ask you to write.
It's not coming.
They'll ask you to write. If you work for the finance sector, Then definitely they'll ask you to write a statistics of the query somewhere in the second tab. That time you need to create a second tab. There you need to take a blank cell and write a formula for the query summary.
I'm not able to figure out Murli.
Yeah, this is a case, if you want to pass any data for, if you want to pass a parameters for any function in Vivo, the parameter must be, if you're passing parameter as an object or query name or data provider name, that all must be in the square braces. When you see in the data access, when you go to edit, in the edit, when you see here, let me go to edit query. I'm just speaking on edit query. I want a query one. When you see in the query one, let me take my properties of query. Query properties. This is my query name. Just take your query name, complete name, not one. You just need to copy the complete query name. Then in the report level, what you need to do is, in the formula of this tab, you need to write this tab. You need to write a formula in the square braces. Always, if you are passing query name or object name into the function, that must be passed with the square braces and validate. Still, it's not, it's not displaying. It's displaying only, when you see here, it's displaying only query one. Please make sure when you are passing a object or query name or data provider name as input for the function, that must be in the square braces. Object name must be in the square braces and query name must be in the square braces and data provider name also must be in the square braces. Now I'm passing a query summary and parameter as query 1. Query 1 you need to put in the square braces in the open parentheses. So it displays only query 1. If you want query 2, same story. Number 2, validate. It will display now query 2 statistics. Query 2 statistics. This is a way you can take summary for one query or summary for all queries based on the requirement. When you work for JPMC and when you work for Bank of America, they definitely ask you to write a formula in the second tab. They'll ask you to write a metadata of the queries. That time, you write add report, right click and add report. You just need to rename this as metadata. Click on OK. This time you write a metadata here. Then you need to go to report element, same story. You need to take a blank data. You need to write query summary formula here. Query summary formula for this report, so that they'll treat this as a metadata for the query. This is a way you need to write. Okay. Anyway, I hope you know the why you need a query summary. Query summary is basically to display the statistics of the query. If you are not passing any parameter, that time it will give a statistics for all queries. If you pass a parameter for one parameter as one query name, that time it will give only statistics for that query. Okay, that's fine. The next question is, I have a replace date, last execution date in 11/1/11. 11/1/11 means 11 is the month name, November, 1 is the date, first date, and again 11 is the 2011 year name. That means my date format is now mm/dd/yy, not even dd, mm/d/yy. But my requirement is, my customer is asking to display date/month/year. Then tell me how you convert this as a date, how you convert this date format from mm/dd/yy into DD slash YY slash DD slash MM slash YY. Siva sir,
Unmuted.
again question for you. Hello.
Use the format again. Double click. That's
Uh-huh.
format. Got to change the format.
Right click. Then you want me
Yeah.
to go to format cells?
Yeah.
Format number, format cell.
Format cell. Yeah.
Yeah.
You have
I think
the
format number. You need to go to format number. Let me take a format. Right click. Yes, format number.
yeah.
There you have a
Now
date.
you have
Date, right?
the date and time.
Uh-huh. Date and time.
You can use
This one.
yeah.
Yes, I use this. Then write 11/1, 2011.
Yeah.
But my requirement is
Hmm.
I want a year, a date with the 01.
Okay. Go to the format.
Uh-huh.
Format cell.
Format
Format
number.
number. Yeah. Yeah. In that, go to customs.
Uh-huh. Custom
Customs
is
will
for
have
number, for date. That is the case. What you need to do is you need to write a formula called as format date,
okay.
format date of this last execution date, semicolon. What format you want? DD slash MM slash YY. YY. If you write DD slash MMYY, see missing operator or closing parenthesis in format date. It says this is a missing. You just need to write a ending parenthesis here. Yes, you validated, but still it writing C DD slash 11 slash YY. The reason is date and Y is years is always in lower letters, not in caps. Sorry, DD slash slash YY. I'll take YY, 4 Ys. This time it will give a 9 when you see here 01/11/2011. If you want only 11 but not 20, so that time you need to take only 2 Ys. Validate it. Yes, this time only it will display 2 Ys. If you want year slash DD slash MM, whatever the format you want, you can write here. Just change the format. If you want a year past, then day, then month, in the time you need to put YY slash DD slash MM based on your requirement.
Murli,
Yes.
suppose I want it as MMM. That is instead of 01, I want it as Jan, JANFEB,
Then
MAR.
tell me how you write. That question is
You
for
just
you.
want to add one more M there. That's it.
Sorry?
You have to add one more M.
One more?
M. DD
You add one
MMM
more.
YY. DD
Here you
MMM
will
YY.
have M.
Yeah.
I
DD.
write one more M.
Yeah, and try it now.
Uh huh.
Oh, yeah, okay,
It will be
fine.
November. Okay, that's good. Then now I want only month name from this. I don't want all. My requirement is, when you talk about your water bill, when you talk about your telephone bill, that report will be run every year, every month one time. That time I don't want date. I want a month name only. The bill month name. From the date I want only month name. I don't want a date. I don't want a month. I don't have a year. Got it? Hello?
Then remove DD and YY.
If you remove DD, YY, DD, Why? Uh-huh. It will give a November. It is also works. And one more way you can get it,
Month, using month.
you can write month, month of date, so that it will extract only month from the date. There's a function called as a month. Sorry? Yeah, if you want a month complete name, here it giving NOV, right? If you want a month complete name November, that time you need to go to, what you need to do is you need to go to, sorry, last execution date of, remove this format. I don't want to write a format number here. This time, you need to write month of month of, sorry, month of last execution date. That time it will give a complete name. See, November, November, November. This is a way you can write a formulas, but I confused. I have a lot of formulas, but I don't know the syntax of all the formulas. But now you have seen only two, three formulas. And now you write other formulas. That time what you need to do is you just need to go to fx. There you have a different functions. If you don't know how to use count, just select on count, click on count. Then here you have a here we have a here you have a description, returns the number of values in a dimension or measure, integer count of that particular distinct. Here you can see the syntax for that particular function, syntax for that particular function. But in R3, there is a more on this function option. When you click more on this function, that time it will give a syntax example and all. Or else you can go to, simple way is, if you don't know how to use, then simply go to help content, click on help content. It will open the help. It opens the help somewhere. You can write a, here see, tutorials or help, wherever you want you can go. Then there you need to write, there you need to search for the function. It will give a syntax example, as well as and as well as example syntax, as well as results, and all details you can get here in the help. Sorry, this is taking into the sdn.help.sap.com. This will execute. Now I have a problem with my Internet Explorer. This will give a help guide. There you can search for your formula. There you can get syntax, results, as well as formula. That all you can write in the fx. You have a lot of formulas here. When you click fx, you have a lot of functions. You have a lot of formulas for the date and time. You have a lot of formulas for the document name. If you want to take a document summary, document date, document name, when it got refreshed, what filters you used in the document, and what kind of prompts you used in the report, prompt summary. When you select prompt summary function, see, I'm just taking a prompt summary function into this cell. Or if you write fx, you can go to document. There you have a prompt summary. I think that I don't have any prompt. If you have a report, have a prompt. That time it will display what values you passed for the prompt. That all details you can get here. That is a way you can write a formula. fx is basically to write a formula. And I talked about this also, variable, create variable. Here you have a variable. This is for creating variable, and this is for validating of the formula. This is for writing your formulas. I hope almost all I discussed all the features there in the WebI. Then tomorrow I'll explain two, three extra formulas called as user response and relative date. And later tomorrow we'll go to scheduling of WebI report. Once we have done the scheduling of WebI report, then we'll move to Excel CS dashboard designer. In R4 you have a new name for the Excel just called as the dashboard designer. There I'll explain how to create static and dynamic dashboards in Excelsius. Excelsius. Any doubts till now?
Murli, I have sent two files to you.
Uh-huh.
One is a PowerPoint, the other one is the data, how I framed it.
Uh-huh.
If you could open it, that will be great help.
That is for Excelsius, right? I'm sorry, now
No,
the time is 6:20.
one is WebI, one is WebI.
Okay, now time is 6:20. I have a class, another class at 7 o'clock. Okay,
Okay.
can you, we'll see tomorrow.
No issues, no issues.
You don't mind, we'll see tomorrow.
No
Uh,
problem.
uh, then we'll discuss about that. Don't worry tomorrow. Okay,
Okay.
thanks.
Okay.
Okay,
Sure.
bye bye.
The organizer has ended the